Okay, well, it's time to learn where we need to go and what we need to do when assigning pricing to material and hardware and setting up company labor costs. Stay tuned for this next video where we're going to learn how to get accurate job costing for our projects in Toolbox. In the previous 2 videos of this training plan, we've gone through the time to set up the project and make sure we have all those products entered inside of the product list. But now, before we generate this quote, we want to make sure that we have the pricing correct on the material, the hardware, and also the labor costs inside of the activity stations. Starting off with the material, let's go to the library specification groups and check out the pricing. We go through the product list to get there. You are able to adjust the pricing for the material inside of the project. Just requires creating that project level material. Otherwise, it's going to use the pricing from the template. We're going to work on our sheet stock material and open up the plywood category. And from there, just our 3/4 inch plywood. First thing towards the top, we have these 3 fields: markup, waste factor, and labor value. The markup, obviously the percentage of markup you want to add to the material, the waste factor, and the labor value. This labor value only has to do with the finishing of the material. So if it's a pre-finished material, you're not going to see any labor value in this field. But for an unfinished plywood, you would want to enter the amount of units that can be finished per minute, and the units being either square meters or square feet. And as we get into the activity stations, I'll show you where we can change that unit type. So instead of square meters, you could change it to square feet. Now for the actual pricing of the material itself. So selecting on the sheets of material, you can edit the sheet size and update this estimate price. And that also includes the edge banding, double-clicking on it or right-clicking and also editing that selected material. We have the same 3 fields with the markup, the waste factor, and labor value, and we have the estimate price here. And you also are able to set the pricing for all the hardware used. The unit type that you have here, you're going to also want to make sure that matches inside of the activity station. So currently we have all our hardware set to each. So that's where you would go to make sure all the material, edge banding, and hardware is set up with the correct pricing inside of your template. The next thing to do is set up our activity stations. And to do that, we go under Toolbox Setup, Options, under the Processing Stations, and this icon here for Activity Stations. So everything that we have set up in these activity stations currently is being used to generate the job costing. Just selecting on the first one, part cutting here, you'll notice we have an activity station name, the activity station number. This number should not be changed because inside of the reports, it's all hard-coded to look to these numbers. So you don't want to be changing any of the activity station numbers. The unit type, this is really just for reference also inside of this interface because again, the reports are set up to look to a specific unit. But you want to make sure that the unit type does match whatever you have it set up inside of the report. And by default, they're all set up that way. So these are the number of units that can be cut per minute. So 15 lineal feet per minute. The number of employees and the labor rate. Same thing applies for all the different stations inside of each department. Vertical drilling. This takes a little bit more time, obviously, to set up because you're going to need to count how many times that vertical drill is going to drop per minute. But this is how accurate this quote can get. Then down to the finishing. And here you'll see in the comments that we only need the labor rate. This is where you would change the unit type if you wanted it to be from square meters to square feet. But again, the units per minute are done in the material file. Same thing goes for the hardware assembly shop and hardware assembly on site. You'll notice there, we only need to enter our labor rate. The units done in the hardware library. We also can track the time that it takes to load and unload, the overall shipping cost and installation, and the drafting time that it takes for each one of your projects. To set up a new activity station, you would right-click and add new activity station. Now, just by doing that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to show up in the report. It does require a little bit more work to go in and customize that report using our report designer tool. At the end of this training plan, I'll show you how we can add a new activity station and have the costs appear in our labor cost report. But for now, we're just going to delete this one and leave everything as is by default. So there's really not much you need to do in Toolbox to make sure the pricing for your project is going to show up on the report as expected. Most of the work is really done tracking the time during the production process and staying on top of vendor pricing. We have a couple more videos in this estimating training plan to finish, so until next time, keep enjoying this journey on working with Microdell and Toolbox.